Good morning. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. I'm told that I have minus 10 minutes to make my presentation because we passed the time. I must say, I arrived this morning from Luanda, and I had instructions to present a bit more the port of Sines because I didn't know that Duarte was going to be able to make it. I'm delighted that Duarte made it, so I'll be able to skip a lot of the slides. You may see some resemblance on the slides. Just bear with me. I'm the president of the Sines Port Community, which is an association of private and public stakeholders that are involved in Sines in general. And I like to say I'm a little bit like the Queen of England in the sense that I have no responsibility, but I get invited to all the events. And what I do, and on a serious note, what I do actually is to try to promote Sines, to try to bring to people's attention the tremendous opportunities that there are here in Sines, in all respects, for investors, for operators, for shippers. And I'm always amazed, even among Portuguese leaders and business executives, how little they know about Sines. It's unbelievable. And then they come here and suddenly realize, oh my God. So it's part of my mission, if you will, is be a bit of an ambassador of Sines and try to show the tremendous opportunities that you have here. And this is what I'm going to try to do now in minus 5 minutes, right? This you have seen, I'll just skip it. I just made it a little prettier. We've seen this, the container throughput, we saw that. Some of you are not too familiar with shipping. I think to understand the opportunities that we have here in Sines, I thought I would spend a minute just to explain to you how the shipping market works, the container shipping market. It's a relatively new market. It was started about a little over 60 years ago by a gentleman called Malcolm McLean, who had nothing to do with shipping. This is why he was able to come up with something radically new. He was a man from the trucking industry, a self-made man who made his life, his early career as a truck driver, and he always thought it was stupid to spend a lot of time in port waiting for the truck to be discharged. It made much more sense to send the entire carriage of the truck on the ship. This was his idea, and he he tried this concept in '56. Was the first container ship. Everybody thought it was crazy. It was not accepted by the industry, and then he was very lucky. Quite often, big innovations need a lucky break, and his lucky break was that the U.S. got very involved in a war in Vietnam, and the defense needed a form of transporting the goods, especially to store the goods, and container was just the perfect solution. So, and what the experience was so rewarding, the transportation was so efficient that by the end of the 60s, every liner company started betting on shipping, on container shipping. And today, as you know, container shipping is responsible for about 80% of the transport of manufacturing goods. Now, Mr. McLean sold the company that he had built called Sealand, which later on was bought by Maersk. And he went to play golf and became, enjoy life. And then later on, in the 80s, he decided that the container market was ready for a new revolution, which is the global, if you will, the global distribution utilizing large motherships that go to a restricted number of ports, and then have the distribution of the cargo with smaller ships. Everybody thought he was ahead of his time, was crazy, but now every shipping company, the main shipping companies, the global companies, use this model, which is actually what you're very familiar in the airline business. When you want to fly to some small country or small airport, you have quite often to go to a hub. So this is how the container ship works today, and this is one of the reasons why Sines has had this success, as I'll show you in a minute. But today, I mean, I don't know if you're aware that the container trade represents something like $18 trillion per year. That represents 24% of the world's GDP. This is how important it is. Okay. Another thing that's good for you to know is that one of the reasons we have a globalization with all its good and bad aspects that we are familiar with is the fact that the transportation costs in containers is so low that you can have actually the factory separate, geographically separate from the assemblage and separate from the distribution and the sale. And this is, I don't know if you can see it, but this is at least at the time of the cost of transportation, or a few things that you're familiar with, and I can tell these numbers are inflated, because the first one, it says for TV, it will cost $10 to ship something from Asia to Europe, and I know that today it's less than half, because the freight in the meantime has come down. So it's the fact that these costs are so low that they have transformed the economy, the worldwide economy, and made possible globalization. Now, one thing that's important also to note before we understand what are the opportunities in things, that nowadays the container shipping works very much through alliances among the shipping operators. Alliance is basically an agreement between the shipping operators to use the ships from each other and then commercialize the space within those ships independently. In other words, they compete in terms of selling the service, but they use the space in the same ships. The ships are sailing together in the service. It's interesting that the 10 largest maritime operators, shipping companies, represent 82% of the world capacity. And you see there are 3 big alliances. The largest one is between Maersk and MSC, which are the 2 largest shipping companies. You see it on the left. They call it 2M. The second largest alliance is alliance between the French of CMA CGM, the Chinese of COSCO, and the Taiwanese of Evergreen. And then the last alliance is essentially led by Hapag-Lloyd, by the German company Hapag-Lloyd, that has the Japanese companies, 3 Japanese companies that joined. They call one, and they are called the alliance. Now, this is important because Sinj is served by the largest alliance. The 2M alliance is the alliance that calls Sinj, and this obviously it's a positive factor if you want to invest in business around here. Why Sinj, we already have seen a little bit, but basically there are two things that are difficult to replicate. One is the geographic location, and the other one is the depth of water. The fact that we have up to 28 meters of depth of water with natural bottoms. We don't have to drag or anything. And there are very few ports in Europe, I would say even in the world, very few ports in Europe that have this kind of draft. A ship that comes here to Sinj cannot enter Antwerp and cannot enter Rotterdam without the tide, number one, and without first letting some of the containers along the way. Sinj can receive the ships completely full at any time of the day, and independent of the tide. That's quite important. There are other advantages, but I'll leave this for some other time. Also, it's useful for you to understand what is the business model behind the development, why Sinj has had some success in the container business. Essentially, the business model has 3 pillars. Okay, the first one is to serve the Portuguese market with direct calls. I don't know if you know, but more than 50%, something like 53% of the world trade in containers, of the containers that move around the world, have an origin in the Pacific. More than 30% is in China. So this is really where most of the traffic is. All right. Portugal was not served directly by these ships because these are very big ships. Until Sinj started operating in 2004, Portugal was served by feeder ships. The big ships would transship the cargo either in the Mediterranean or North Europe, and this is how the Portuguese market was served. So Sinj enabled, in fact, the Portuguese shippers, the importers and exporters, to have direct service, which is shorter time and lower rates. This was very important. But you could not do this with the Portuguese market. You cannot convince the shipping companies to come to Sinj with just the Portuguese market because it's very small. So we have to offer something to attract and complement that, which is transshipment. In other words, to be able to move in Sinj cargo that doesn't come to Portugal, but moves from one ship to another ship here in Portugal. It was the combination of the two that made it possible to convince 2M, the MSC and Maersk, to come to Portugal and come to Sinj. But the third and most important one, and this is the one that I'm trying to promote as much as possible, is the fact that once you have these services, once you have these connections around the world, that Sinj has, but you just have to look at the picture, has an incredible potential to be able to serve industries and logistics and services, special logistics services. Flip talked about it already in Zils, to take advantage of that. And this is not what's being done yet. This is one of the things I'm trying to bring to people's attention, that you should be aware of this unique combination of deep sea port with direct connections with the entire world, and up to 4,000 hectares of space is waiting for your compatriot investors and operators and shippers to look at it. Just look at it. I'm not going to spend too much time because we don't have too much time, but this is the competition around here, and Sinj has a unique offer that distinguishes it from the other ports. Basically, you have ports that are very much geared towards transshipment, and the two largest ones is Algeciras and Tanger Med in Morocco. But for the shipping company, transshipment is a cost. It's a cost. So they're going to try to do it where it's cheap as possible, unless they can find a place where they can also get the revenue. And the revenue will lower the net transshipment cost. And what happens with Sinj? Sinj is exactly halfway between a pure transshipment port like Tanger Med or Algeciras and a port that has a lot of local cargo like Barcelona and Valencia. Sinj is much cheaper than a Spanish port, but it's more expensive than a Moroccan port. And we have our competitive position is exactly being able to be competitive in transshipment, more competitive than the Spanish, and have some amount of cargo that attracts the shipping business, okay? This we have seen. I don't know if Duarte said, but there's a target of trying to have an international tender for a terminal Baixo da Gama in the first quarter of 2019. This you have seen it lots of times. We should not forget also the fact that we are served by an airport that's not far from here, and there's a lot of potential, a lot available space. But we have good road and air and connectivity. The road is not as good as it should be in terms of the connection to E2. Also, another thing that you read in the papers, and I have no question is going to have an impact, is starting to have an impact, is the fact that Portugal has signed an agreement with China to speed up all the customs clearance. They call it the Smart and Secure Trade Lanes project, where you only have to clear the cargo either in China or in Portugal one time. And I think this heralds or is a sign that the so-called new maritime Silk Road is looking very attentively to Portugal as a possible stop at the end of the road, the Mediterranean road. Okay. There are some tremendous transformations in the market that have to do with logistics. And funny enough, there's a name that you associate with the e-commerce, Amazon. Amazon has disrupted a lot of industries. Has started now disrupting the food industry. As you know, they bought a big food chain, and they are disrupting the shipping business. They decide to obtain the status of what it's called NVOCC, non-vessel operating common carrier. It's basically a shipping company that does not use ships, uses the people ship. And of course, with that, they are able to consolidate all their business and the business of the companies that sell through Amazon. And this has created a lot of agitation in the shipping business, because clearly they're going to be very competitive in some markets. They started with the market from China to US, and the other the three largest companies, they all have taken very strong measures to try also to position themselves as integrated logistic operators. The first one is Maersk, has announced that they want to be the FedEx or the UPS of the shipping market. The other one is CMA CGM, the French company that took a big stake in the Dutch, one of the largest logistic companies. And this is just happening. And the third one is very important for us, is in fact MSC, which is the second largest shipping company in the world, and the largest one by far in the Iberian Peninsula, has decided to become a rail operator. And they're operating already a few services between Portugal and Spain, and the ambition is to take it much further than that. Okay? We've seen ZILS already. You know what it is. Within ZILS, that is the logistic area, 270 hectares closest to the port, that clearly has great conditions to attract essential distribution centers, assemblage of goods, transformation of goods. And this is one of the things that I've been trying to promote, and I hope that one of the takeaways you may take from here is that there's an opportunity here to try to look at Sinj as a great place to have regional distribution centers, to do it from here, not for the Iberian Peninsula, but also for the rest of Europe. This is the type of clients that we're trying to promote this logistic area too. I hope it will click on your mind some potential investors, operators, or shippers that may be interested in looking at it. Okay. In the end, just close because this is an event that has to do with the Alentejo Global Invest. Clearly, Synergy is very closely integrated with all of the Alentejo logistics. As you know, and you'll see tomorrow, there's a lot of new business in Alentejo, some of it connected to the Alqueva, and it's crying for an integrated logistics connecting to Synergy, making those business investments more efficient. Two of them is the agribusiness, the other one is the rock, the what do you call it, the ornamental rocks, which are divided up by many companies, and there's a solution trying to be developed to make it more efficient and use Synergy as their gateway port. Thank you very much. Sorry to go so fast, but we will.